Let me start with the Al Michaels situation. The hot stove period was a term that originated in baseball, and that was used to describe the offseason, all the moves that were being made. And now it's become a huge deal in every sport. Like we have a hot stove league for all sports, including broadcasting. And we've got rumor mills, not quite sure if this is true or not, but I'm hearing. Now, it really took off when CBS signed Tony Romo for $17 million a year. Then the news came out that CBS actually looked at Peyton Manning. Remember when we heard the salary for Peyton Manning, that it was somewhere between 10 and 12 million, but you got Romo for 17? And maybe I've got it out of order, or that ESPN was looking at Peyton Manning for 10 to 12 million dollars a year. And I went, first of all, if you offer him 10 to 12 million dollars a year, the first thing Peyton's going to say is, I want more than Tony Romo if you want me to do this. I got a couple of Super Bowl rings here. I'm the one that originated all at the line of scrimmage. I'll tell you what's happening in real time. ESPN also reportedly interested in Phillip Rivers. Now, I think Phillip Rivers might turn out to be sneaky good. He's different than Peyton is. I think, just his delivery, got a little bit of that southern drawl to him, and I think he's sneaky funny. And he could be prickly there probably in the broadcast booth. But now we're, listening to guy. I thought Drew Brees, if Drew Brees got a good enough offer, that maybe he was going to go into the broadcast booth. I have no inside knowledge on this, but I thought if he was going to be deciding not to come back and the CBS job was open or the Monday night job was open, that maybe Drew Brees would take that. But he would be leaving a very good team, and that's why he's coming back to play. But now we have trade rumors here. Al Michaels was once traded by ESPN ABC to NBC, and he was traded for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. True story, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Now, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is revered by the Disney family because Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was the precursor to Mickey Mouse back in the 1920s. And they wanted to have those rights. And you had Al Michaels, one of the great play-by-play voices in the history of sports, traded. And now there's talk that maybe ESPN ABC is going to try to trade back for Al Michaels. I don't know if Oswald the Lucky Rabbit gets back in the deal again, but they want to try to pair him because Peyton's not going to do this unless he's got a great play-by-play voice with him. I was told that last night, that who Peyton would love, from what I was told, to be paired with Mike Tirico. Well, Mike Tirico does so many things for NBC Sports, that NBC Sports would be crazy to have Mike involved in a deal. Plus, Al Michaels has been doing this a long time. I think Al would like to stay around, do one more Super Bowl here. And ESPN, ABC trying to get a Super Bowl here. If Peyton could work with Mike Tirico, because I think Peyton, from what I was told, Peyton had talked to John Gruden, and Gruden said, if you can work with Mike Tirico, do so. Well, then Mike, of course, went to NBC, and Mike's not even doing the football game on Sunday night. He's doing the studio hosting duties. But now the possibility of, and we did reach out to Al, and Al is out of pocket today. I don't know if Al's ever been out of pocket, but he is today, and that's probably a smart thing. That's a smart thing, Al. Stay out of pocket today. But, yeah, we were curious if he was willing to come on and talk about that. But if you're Al, you got a Super Bowl coming up in 2 years, and you want to be around for that, to do that instead of being traded to ESPN ABC. Plus, Al wouldn't be a long-term solution for a network whose deal is up in 2 years. And you're looking at a 10-year deal with the players. How long will the TV deal be? And how long does Al want to do this? But if you can get Peyton, and if I'm Peyton Manning, I say to Al, if this happens, how long do you want to do this, Al? Because that would influence my decision if I really wanted to do this. You're going to get paid, but I want to know who's with me. The reason why Romo works so well is because of Jim Nantz. And it's lost on a lot of viewers, and I understand that. But being in the business to understand just how important and the timing of that. What Jim Nantz does is not to be underrated, because Tony can kind of blurt out things as if he's a fan at home, and then Jim has to sort of clean up the spill in aisle 6. It's like an air traffic controller. You got planes landing at all the time, different runways. Jim takes it from Tony to get it back to the game, call the action, and then give it back to Tony. That was so important, I think, to Tony Romo. You can go to Monday Night Football. Who are you going to be paired with? And will it work the same way? And it won't work the same way, whether it's Joe Tessitore or Mike Tirico or whoever it might be. It won't work the same way. It works with Jim. Now, Peyton's going to want to know, hey, who's going to be the play-by-play guy? And I'm going to guess if you're getting Peyton, you're going to have to go out and get an established voice. Sean McDonough didn't work. And he didn't work for a couple of reasons. Not that he's not a great voice there and a professional. He's a college voice. And he and Gruden didn't get along. They weren't friends the way Gruden and Tirico got along. They were friends. And that helps. It's that relationship when you go in there, that trust that you have. It's no different than when I anchored the 11 o'clock Sports Center with Keith Olbermann. When we got on the air, we were friends and had each other's backs. And we had respect for one another. Like, you have to have that camaraderie. And I think that's important. If you're Peyton going into this situation, who's my voice? Who's that guy? And Al Michaels will make him look even greater.
Great to be back. Everybody's been very kind and supportive and understanding. 3 guests out of the hospital.
Looking forward to having you back next Friday.
Oh.
I didn't miss you. Could you have gotten this deal done without a 17th game?
It was clear from the owners not an early deal. So I just assume you mean the deal that's on the table now.
Yeah.
They conditioned the early deal on a 17th game after they rejected the players' opening proposal to do an early deal based on a 16-game.
Give me the details, though, from the players' perspective on a 17th game. What are the biggest concerns here, besides the obvious one with just an extra game that you can get hurt?
Right. I think that's primarily it. I mean, we certainly don't I haven't talked to many players who would prefer to play a 17th game. I think if players had their druthers, there's some who would want a 14-game schedule. But there's also players that I've talked to who said that a 17th game schedule would be okay if there were X, Y, and Z built around it, and that X, Y, and Z for a union revolves around better wages, better hours, better working conditions, and better benefits. And that's what this deal has in it. And I certainly understand, and nobody understands better than me after going through a lockout in 2011 where the owners wanted to have the unconditional right to move to 18 or even 21 games.
Oh, man.
I certainly understand that fight, and we capped that in 2011, and that was one of the, if you remember, one of the major issues in the 2011 lockout. But coming up with an early deal package that contained many of, if not virtually all, of the top issues that our players identified both during the rep meetings and during the time when I was out with the teams, that's what's on the table. But, this is a democracy, and I understand that democracies can be messy. We can turn on and look at the primaries right now and know that that's true. The men make a decision where everybody is heard and everybody gets an opportunity to vote, and that's all I can ask for.
It's so important it felt like this was being expedited, and I got a little nervous as I was looking at this, that if the owners want it and want it expedited, then I worried how good a deal it was.
Yeah, and I think that is probably one of the most unfortunate and incorrect narratives that's out there.
Okay.
We started meeting with our players in 2019, actually going back to 2017, telling them to get ready for a work stoppage. In 2019, we had 3 days with the largest player rep meeting that we've ever had, listing all of the issues that were important to players. In April, May of 2019, those players actually put together a proposal and gave it to the owners. So that was almost a year ago. So this process actually started nearly a year ago, where we took the ideas and certainly the theme that came out of the meeting last year was we had to do something to take care of the core players, the majority of our players, to make sure that they had better wages, more control over their working conditions, and certainly better benefits. But that process started a year ago. I know that sometimes the public doesn't really focus on things until they bubble up in the media. But to say that this was somehow rushed or expedited is not only not the right narrative. It's just utterly inconsistent with the facts. I think the other thing that perhaps people don't understand is a lot of these negotiations also centered around many of the positives from a new collective bargaining agreement actually going into effect a year early. So our deal doesn't expire until March of 2021. Virtually all of the benefits of this new collective bargaining agreement, including the 20% raise for the core players, goes into effect a year earlier than we would if we waited until expiration.
What happens, though, when you read J.J. Watt, Aaron Rodgers, Richard Sherman, Russell Wilson making public comments about this? Your role after you read or hear those comments is what?
My role doesn't change. I'm a union leader. And, if I look at
but you don't reach out to them individually just to say, hey, share this with me. Let's don't put this out here unless everybody knows exactly what's involved in all of this.
Yeah, you and I have known each other long enough, and I never really talk about my private conversations with players. I see their public mentions, but I guess where I was going with being a union leader is we're in a world where people have platforms to express their opinions, and I would much rather have a world where guys feel free and certainly nobody feels any constrained nature to voice their opinion. I'd rather have that than people who feel like that they're afraid to voice their opinion or fear that there's some sort of retaliation. One thing we can both agree on, we certainly don't have that. So I would much rather live in a world where our guys believe that they have a voice, that this is run like a democracy. And as a union leader, you simply take what people want to say publicly as part of the process.
You think you could take Roger Goodell?
Are you talking about arm wrestling, a race?
How about arm wrestling?
Oh, yeah.
All right. What if you went into the octagon?
Well, I'm a little bit of a germ guy, so the fact that there's already blood on the floor would make me a little squeamish. But other than that, I'm still pretty confident. Yeah.
How about we set that up?
I love the fact that I can expect a completely off-the-wall question.
Well, this show, and you're in pretty good shape. I figure, Goodell's he's rangy.
He's rangy. He's got a little bit of height on me, and look, I think it would be a pretty good fight. Do I think I'm probably the first person who would cheat? Yes. Isn't that part of the game? Yeah. So if we had to go into an octagon and there was a WWE folding chair nearby, well, that's what you have to use.
Have you ever been mad enough that you wanted to punch him, like in your mind?
Hey, what's your next question?
Yeah.
Hey, yo. The closest I get to physical activity now is watching my son play for Maryland lacrosse. That's about as good a shape as I'm in. I can make it into the stands and I can make it out of the stands. That's about it.
Well, good luck with this. You sound pretty good for, we got a little bit of, is there a Cliff Notes version of this, though, DeMorris? Like 456 pages. Come on.
There is a Cliff Notes version that we sent out to all of the players and all of the agents. You know what? I know a guy who knows a guy. I'll make sure I send one to you.
That's great. when you get a chance, when you go on campus and you see my statue, just take a picture if you want, and maybe stop, admire it.
It's funny you say that because I tripped over it the other day.
It's
it's not as large of a statue. It's not the base. It's not as large of a statue as you think.
I heard it blocks out the sun.
Well, funny, I think you saw the sort of in-depth reporting I did on your time at Dayton, and it was really funny. Like, I had to explain to the players who are amazing. You got great players here. They were asking, well, when was Dan Patrick here? And I said, well, if you've ever heard of Bing Crosby or watched I Love Lucy,
wow.
I Love Lucy was the top show back then, and Bing Crosby was the number one. That was the time frame, wasn't it? Don May was here as a player, and
Jim Paxson.
Oh, Paxson was there, so that was the 70s. Okay, Don May was the 60s. I thought it was the 60s. Was I mistaken there?
Yeah. Donnie May was in the 60s. Jim, if you set the scene for college basketball, if you were summing up college basketball for somebody who hasn't watched this year, like what would be the number one story in college basketball?
Well, it has been a year of the little guy and a year where we don't have any recognized overwhelming favorites. And usually you'd have teams like Duke or North Carolina or Kansas or Michigan State where they're beating Kentucky, like say 2015. The story that year was Kentucky can go undefeated. They're that good. And then the other two teams that are going to be in the Final Four, Wisconsin and Duke. And if those three aren't there, then there's been an earthquake or some other catastrophe that's kept that from happening, or a virus that's kept that from happening. This year, I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen or feels like they know. And I think we say that about the NCAA tournament every year. Boy, it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
But this year seems different. It seems more like 2010, where we felt like it was a quote unquote down year, but we didn't really know what was going to happen. And oddly enough, that's when Butler goes to the championship game, and they did that 2 years in a row when we thought, hey, college basketball is a little bit down. And Kansas is the best team I've seen. Dayton's not far off, but outside of that. There is a real feeling, not of anybody can win, because I don't think that's fair. I don't think anybody can win the championship, but more than ever, you get the feeling that, man, anybody can lose. Like anybody can lose in the second round, and I don't usually feel that way.
Well, that it goes back to when you're trying to pick, you fill out your brackets and you're trying to pick somebody who can win 6 games.
Yes.
And it's really hard. Kansas is the one team I think could win 6 games. I don't know if there's another team. Baylor, I'm not quite sure. Even my alma mater, like winning 6 games is really difficult because you're going to have 1 or 2 close games where you're going to need a little bit of luck, or somebody's going to hit a big shot. And I don't know if I gave you Kansas and I took the field, or the other way around, what would you do?
I would probably take Kansas, and because they're as close to. There's no sure thing, but they've been the most consistent. They are one of only 2 teams, I believe, that are in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. Like this year, more than any other I can remember, you've got a team that's top 5 on offense and they're top 50 on defense. So everybody seems like they've got a hole somewhere, and everyone has shown a vulnerability, and everyone has been beaten by somebody that shouldn't have beaten them, that you believe. And so it's sort of the anybody can lose thing. Like I can see all these teams losing, but there are only about 10 of them, to your point, that I can see, maybe 9, winning 6. Or having the chance to win 6. Obviously, only 4 of them are going to win 4 games, and only 2 of them are going to win 5. But only one wins 6, and I only think there are 9 teams that can do that.
And then going to Duke, the call of North Carolina Duke, that'll be on Saturday at 6 Eastern on ESPN. We got Roy Williams on next hour, and I'm surprised he's joining us. I mean, this has been a really tough year for Roy Williams. What do you make of that Carolina situation here?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised that he's joining you because he is a stand-up guy, and this has been extraordinarily difficult, I think, for everybody involved to have a year like this. And I know there are a lot of coaches out there saying, "Welcome to the club." This happens to us all the time. But one of the great things about Roy Williams is while it's been frustrating, he has not taken it out on the players. I said pretty early on with Carolina that it's not a vintage Carolina team. It is not like last year where they had a bunch of first-round draft picks and Kobe White and Cam Johnson, all that stuff, and they had older players and it was a number one seed. It's not that type of team and was not going to be no matter what. But they've had all these injuries throughout the year. But even with that, I felt like they were far better than they had played. And now maybe the last 5 games, but especially the last 3, they're starting to play like that. And they've lost a bunch of one-possession games where they're, in years past, they weren't in one-possession games against those teams. But the last 3 games, they're starting to show signs that they can beat anybody. And so that's going to make tomorrow night at Cameron even more interesting. And then it's going to make the ACC tournament interesting for them because I think they have to win the tournament. I think everybody agrees with that. They got to win the tournament to make the NCAA tournament.
A little bit of a slump, a little bit of a terrible shooting streak. I'll get it back, though. That's the way, the one thing I've learned about being on this show is that, or about shooting, is that shooters shoot their way out of a slump. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Because I'm a scorer. I'm a pure scorer. And I'm just trying to find my way back to the goal. Step 1.
How would you sum up, if somebody didn't see your team play this year, how would you sum up, maybe in one sentence, this season so far?
That I should have continued coaching football and give up basketball. I did coach high school football for 4 years as an assistant, so that's what they would say if watching our team this year is that I should have found another vocation.
But do you start to doubt yourself?
Well, I think, Danny, that I've always doubted myself. Every game after the game, I said, God, I should have done this or I should have done that. And I don't know if I can say doubting myself, but I've always questioned myself. And I think probably question yourself during years like this more than you ever do. And so it's a reason that when we do have great years, I really try to spend some time to go back and look and make sure that I look and study things a great deal, even when we have great years, much less what we've been going through this year.
I have to be honest, I was worried about you a little bit this year. And this wasn't health related, but just from afar, I was like, I don't know if you're enjoying yourself. And, there's a challenge there every year for you, for every coach. But I don't know, it got to you a lot more than I thought it would.
Well, I think that I'm lucky because we haven't I've never gone through anything like this, but so I've been so lucky. But I do take it personally. I do take it home with me. I do wake up in the middle of the night, and I haven't done as good a job with this team. I think that the way I evaluate my coaching is, did I get the team to play to their potential? Did I get every individual to play to their potential and be able to make good decisions under adversity and to come through under adversity? And I haven't gotten this team to do as well. It's a kind of thing that it still bothers me. I didn't sleep very well last night, so I don't know that I'll start sleeping any better until we start winning more. But we've won 3 in a row, and that makes it better. But I've just never gone through this, and it's been hard. It really has. And but I really sit back a lot of times and think that other people really have some problems, and my problem's not trying to figure out how to get one stop. We've lost 6 games this year that if we had gotten one defensive stop, we could have been 6-0. Instead, we got 0, and so we were 0-6 in those games.
Yeah, and then that would give you 19 wins on the season, and you wouldn't be in the position where you are, where you're going to have to win out to make the tournament. I'm guessing that would be.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Kimball Walker style, and he's the lad. Their team, not just Kimball, but Kimball was sensational. But they won their last 5 to get in the tournament, and then won all 6 games in the NCAA tournament. So it can be done. It's not easy to say the least, but I'll give you the difference in Roy Williams and Coach Dean Smith. There's about 1 million of them, 1 million miles. But my first year as an assistant coach here at North Carolina, we won 5 games where the other team had the last shot to win the game and missed all 5. So we were 5-0 that year. This year we're 0-6. So I told Coach Smith that's really good coaching, and we had a little bit of a chuckle about it a couple of years after that. But there's no chuckling going on in Royville right now.
Who'd you hear from after you dropped the F-bomb after the game against North Carolina or Notre Dame?
Almost no one. It really was. One of fellow coach said, "I'm glad you're normal," and I laughed, but I didn't laugh at the time. It's something I shouldn't have done, and it just came out. The question sort of bothered me, and I let that get to me, and it was something I'm not proud of. But I'm not proud of a lot of things I've done. It's just I haven't done it in the front of with microphones in front of me.
He's Roy Williams asked in the NBA?
No. Not at all. I think I saw him in high school more than any other head coach over a 2-year period. I was down there like 13 times and just thought he was the most amazing specimen I'd ever seen.
How did you lose him?
Yeah.
How did you lose him?
I wish I could find out. If I knew that, I wouldn't have lost him. I would have changed. But no, Duke did a great job. But I tell you what, did some of the most amazing things in high school that I've ever seen, and yet I've always worried about his knees and his ankles, his lower body, because the guy jumps so high with that amount of weight that there's a collision every time he comes down. And but I just think he's got this air about him that people enjoy him, people like him. He's a very gregarious personality and jumps higher and plays harder and runs faster than just about anybody that's ever played the game at that size. And he's got to stand the test of time in the NBA, but truly one of the greatest high school players and college players that I've ever seen.
Johnny Miller. Right on the... Go around the room what we learned on the program. Todd, what did you learn?
49ers haven't shout down rumors about the interest in Tom Brady because they are, in fact, interested in Tom Brady.
Yeah, they could end this right now. They just say, no, we're not. This is silly. We're not interested in Tom Brady. McLevin?
DeMaurice Smith said he could take Goodell in arm wrestling and in MMA, although he finds the ring kind of gross because of the blood.
Seton O'Connor Jr. III.
The Hem Dog is an instant legend on this show.
Bill Hemmer, the Hem Dog. Paulie?
Todd has literally become Friday Fritzy.
Yeah.
I got to try to make it more than once a week.
Yeah. What did I learn, Todd?
Roy Williams once coached high school football for 4 years. His favorite NFL team, the Tennessee Titans.
Tecovas boots are handmade, full-grain leathers by world-class boot makers. Tecovas cuts out the middlemen, sells directly to you at amazing prices. Tecovas, TECOVS.com/DP. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you Monday.